I'll just dive right in with you.
Yeah.
I know Knochelmann and Schneller, your family's company. You have an entrepreneurship background, man. And I think just you kind of being, not really politics, but being in law, as opposed to where you were, and kind of shed some light with students. So just start real easy, start from the beginning. How did you get into Knochelmann and Schneller and maybe, the whole process?
Well, first of all, I'd also tell you my background educational is actually not law, but is accounting. But and that's more the political side of things. But so my dad, it's a really unique story, not because it's me involved. It's because I'm just a guy with 2 arms and 2 legs walking through life. But so really my dad and his brother had a plumbing business, and my dad was asked to be a partner in it. They had kind of their good times, bad times. My dad ended up owning the majority of the business.
Yeah.
Then when I'm the baby of 9. So when I got to be in high school, went to work for my dad. He was older, asked me to get involved in the business because he wanted to retire, and went to Latin school. So I skipped a couple years, then went to Xavier. And while I was at Xavier going through school full time, and he told me you have to pay for your own school. So I had to went to work with my dad and worked full time, went to Xavier, borrowed a bunch of money, and knew I wanted to get a business degree. So I never really worked in the field of plumbing and heating, but really it's through family. And then we actually bought it from my dad. So I went from working for my dad, organized my brothers and myself. We bought the business from my father. Mm-hmm. So we went through that private purchase. Then we owned it for about maybe 9 years. I forget the dates now. And then we actually sold the business to a roll-up that they did back. It was when they rolled up for a first going public. And so the consolidator, we were actually the second round of a consolidation. So I went from working for my dad, being one of the 20% owner of the business, then realized we needed to have an exit because we're 5 owners. And I said, you know what, I'm the youngest of this group, and it is not going to be good for me or this group to long-term have 5 owners in this business. This is just not going to be the right model. So we sold it and to a consolidator. And then I got to experience now a corporate world, because we went from a small business, a few $1 million a year. And then now we were part of a company that was about almost $1 billion and around the country. And then really got access to corporate leadership, corporate law, it was pretty great experience. I got on a national advisory board and did all that. And then after that all kind of calmed down, that company then was sold to another corporation, which then sold to a venture capital group. And ironically, as much as I love VC efforts and raising money, that's a different world. And those guys came in and essentially cut costs galore. I lost my job. Well, they offered me a new job that was going to require me to do a lot of travel, a lot less pay, a lot less incentive. And I left and then bought Schneller. And so I went to running the company. At that time, we had about 50 employees. They told me, here's an offer. You got to a job. You got 24 hours to decide. I said, no, I'm not working I'm never going to work in the corporate environment again. I'm out. And then within 90 days, bought Schneller, and which was a grace from God, actually. And then now in April, we'll hit 10 years, in fact. And we went from, 3 employees, and we'll have probably 90 by early next year. So been very, very fortunate. I mean, it was just my wife and I who bought it, but almost every single employee who used to work for me came over in the new company, and we've continued to grow.
Wow. It takes a lot of persistence, it sounds like.
Luck.
Yeah, luck. Okay. Okay.
And just ability to make a decision. That's part of the gig there.
Yeah. Well, I've been asking a lot of the entrepreneurs like yourself, well-educated men and women, can you give some advice to kids like you just did, to how to persevere through that? Because there's not a path or really a book that tells you what to do, right?
Right. Well, I think that, if you have belief in yourself, and it's not just over unsubstantiated confidence, but I believe you've got to have let me back up and say, I think if there's one message I would tell to entrepreneurs or people is that it is not as hard as people make it out to be. It isn't brain science. It is, you don't have to, and I'm solid average intelligence, other than the fact that I get along with people generally. You know, I was always an average student in school. You know, you don't have to be a brain scientist to be a successful business owner, but you have to have guts. And number one, so it's not overly complicated. B, you know, you have to have the guts to go after it. But ultimately, I always try and think about, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen? So what if I don't have, and I have to live in a small apartment? So what if I have to not be able to buy expensive food or expensive clothing? I can get through those tougher times, because I will tell you the chances of success, in my view, you may actually have more data on this, the chances of success of small business in the United States in the long run is very high. Doesn't mean that we all have failures. It doesn't mean we have failed businesses, or we lose money, or we make bad decisions. But if we then keep getting back up on the saddle, in the long run, it is a heck of a great opportunity to go after an idea or owning a small business. And, you know, and I've got 3 kids, and I told all 3 of them, I said, you know, even though we've got our own family business, I told all 3 of them, they're totally different. They're different skill sets, different personalities. So guys, if you really want to ultimately have some flexibility and opportunity for financial wealth, figure out how to own your own business, period. And it can be 1 employee, or it could be, you know, 2,000. But that is what's so awesome about, you know, the opportunity that exists in the country. But I think that people have to be told that don't overcomplicate it. And, you know, and I know, you know, the background of a lot of businesses that I don't, but, you know, some businesses do require a lot of capital and a lot of, you know, you got to have expertise in a certain area. And my dad always told me, this is when he told me when I was a young kid, you know, he said, you know, any successful has to have, you know, either 3 things, you know, you got expertise, you got capital, and you understand business. So essentially it's like, okay, do you understand accounting? Do you have tons of money? And do you understand a product or service really, really well? If you have all 3, you're probably going to kick butt. You can get by and survive with 2 of the 3, but if you've only got 1, you're probably going to fail. You know, if you're a trust fund baby, and the guy says, you know, son, you got millions of dollars, go do what you want to do, but you don't have a clue about financial statements and how profit works, and you don't have a skill of a specific product or service, you're going to waste all that money. But, you know, you start having, and I will say this, you know, I've normally, when I've tried to be involved in something, I've typically only had 2, you know, 2 of those 3, and you can make that work. So I'll shut up. You can ask me another thought or
no,
critique what I've said.
No, that was perfect. One of my only other things, man, I wanted to ask you, how did you get to be a judge? So how did you get from that space to being in, I guess, the political world in some sense?
Yeah. Well, I've always been a weirdo. I liked Ronald Reagan growing up. My dad was a Ronald Reagan guy. Went to Xavier, started watching politics, you know, and then I got asked, because where I lived down in Covington, I grew up in Riverside Terrace, which are the condos behind what used to be Mike Fink. And I don't know how old you are, if you remember the restaurants down in that Licking Riverside area. But anyway, so I lived there, and I was asked to serve work on a campaign one time. And then through that campaign, somebody told me, hey, you know, you could run for county commissioner. And I thought, you know what, I think I probably should do that. And I ran and won. And then my second run of commissioner, nobody opposed me. And then I decided, because I was commissioner that round with a guy who had my job, which I'm not a real black robe judge. I'm essentially a mayor of the county. My title shouldn't be judge anymore. Back in the day, they used to be real judges, but and so the guy that I served with is the judge at the time I really didn't care for. And I thought, you know what, if I'm going to stay in politics, I'm just going to take him out. And if I'm out, you know, my quote of my race was, if I win, I win. And if I lose, I win, because I can focus on the business, and my wife would be happier if I weren't in politics. So, but I think back to the real thing, I grew up mindful that, you know, Colin, I don't know how you feel about it, but I think, you know, I'm on this earth not because of anything I did, and everything I've got, I absolutely say thank you, God. It's because given tools and opportunity to do something. And if there was ever an opportunity to, the business has been a blessing and a grace, but I think that politics for me is something, okay, I'm supposed to do something and make a difference. And it's not about me, because once I'm gone, whether it be in 2 years or 6 years or whatever out of politics, nobody's going to know Kris Knochelmann. Nobody's going to know what I did. Or that I did it. There might be some ramifications of some policy or whatever we put in place. But so while we're here, why not do good, and have an impact? So I'm fortunate enough I get to do that.